Okay. I think we're good. I think we're good to go. Let's test it out. Okay, awesome. All right, we're live again. It's been a minute since I've been live. A lot of things to talk about. Haven't been live for about a week now, but a lot of things have happened within the last week. Saw a major compression and then a major rally of AI neoclouds, that kind of stuff. We also got full Q2 earnings for all of our hyperscalers. So we've got information on Amazon, we've gotten information on Meta, we've gotten information on Microsoft, Google, as well as Oracle, and what all those companies are planning on doing with their cash. Lots of exciting things happening on those fronts. But some interesting news is that SpaceX released its first Q2 or its first earnings report, and a lot of things to glean from that, and a lot of things to learn from that. Remado says, "Hey, what do we think of SanDisk?" SanDisk is in an interesting spot. I think that with the memory sell-off that we've seen recently, and then the subsequent massive rally that we've seen in the last couple of days with SanDisk, the company's in an interesting position. We're getting Q4 earnings calls today at 4:30, so we could get some information about what the company, their financial prospects are going to look like, what their performance is going to look like. So I'm definitely interested to learn about SanDisk. Right now, SanDisk, it's a little volatile for me. We're probably not going to see $2,000 a share. I don't think anytime soon in the immediate future. But there are reasons to like SanDisk. I understand why people want to get into the memory game. I think that there's a lot to like about SanDisk. But for now, it feels a little bit expensive for me. Thoughts on Celsius, up or down tomorrow after earnings? Celsius. Oops. I think that we're probably going to see Celsius have a slight beat. There's what I'm a little bit concerned about is that we're probably going to see a decline in EPS with respect to Celsius, but we're going to see increased year-over-year revenue. As a result, I think we're actually probably going to see Celsius go up after earnings, maybe after hours. We'll see though. SK Hynix. Yeah, how does SK Hynix doing today? Down 1.5% at $1.52 per share. With SK Hynix, I've said the same. I've said this about SK Hynix. I've also said this about companies like Micron. There's a lot of things to like about SK Hynix. The fundamentals are there. The fundamentals are definitely there with SK Hynix. They have a lot of backlog. They have strong earnings, and they have a strong balance sheet, in my opinion. But they're essentially the Korean version of Micron. So there's a lot to like about them. And I understand why people want to get into SK Hynix. I'd love to see a strong bull case for them, though. Thoughts on NRG? Energy? Stake, do you mean Next NRG? Or NRG, the ticker? What do we say on SanDisk? I think that SanDisk is in an interesting spot. The thing with SanDisk, though, in my opinion, is that I don't believe that SanDisk will we probably won't see SanDisk above $2,000 a share anytime soon, in my opinion. Thoughts on AMD? I don't like. I mean, after what Elon Musk said on the SpaceX earnings, their first quarterly earnings report, he said they're exclusively with NVIDIA. I don't get why you would invest in AMD when you can invest in NVIDIA. And like AMD is kind of a loser, in my opinion. It's very expensive relative to its earnings, and it's just sitting in the shadow of NVIDIA. They're essentially, I think, to a lot of hyperscalers and to a lot of people building data centers, kind of like just like a secondary shop to go at, for GPUs and other cloud computing components that people need. I'm not a huge fan of AMD, to be honest. Thoughts on IonQ? Quantum is cool. For me, it's a little early for Quantum. I like how these guys are positioned, though. In my view, I don't think we're going to see a big breakout of this stock. It's been an interesting year, and June was an interesting month for this company, But as far as getting above, $70 a share, it's going to require some big news from the quantum computing world. I think we're still about 18 months away from that. Thoughts on Tesla? I don't like Tesla. Never invested in it. I don't invest in automotive companies, especially not Tesla. MU is bound to follow SanDisk with earning, right? I mean, I would imagine Micron's probably going to beat, and I would both on revenue and earnings would be my guess. But like we've seen with a lot of companies from this market lately, after they report their beat in EPS and their beat in earnings and beat in revenue, the stock is punished for it as a result. It's strange. It's strange how the market decides to do that. The market gets stuff wrong all the time, though. Make it or break for quantum. Luis, I think for quantum, it'll get there. I think quantum is going to be the next big exciting thing, kind of like how AI is the big exciting thing in today's world at the moment. I think the need for quantum computing is definitely there in the future. I don't know if like the commercial case for it and the commercial uses for quantum computing, I think, are still being worked on. I like Google and Meta currently. Josh, I like Google and Meta too. I like Google more. And honestly, I would if I had to pick two out of 5 hyperscalers, I would pick Google and I would pick Microsoft. At least as of their latest quarterly earnings report. Meta, I would probably put in a C tier at the moment. They basically had pretty low cash flow, relatively speaking, and there's a lot of things that Meta's doing. Like basically, Microsoft is saying we have something to show for all of the money that we're spending on AI. Meta's not there yet, and I'm not a huge fan of it. Palantir, here's my take on Palantir. Palantir knocked it out of the park with their revenue increase and with their earnings increase. This company is scaling extremely well. There's a lot of things to like about Palantir. I get why people like Palantir. Palantir's too expensive for my taste because Palantir has to sustain this growth rate for a long time to justify its current price, in my opinion. I don't think it can. So I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan of Palantir. I honestly don't like the management. I don't like Palantir's leadership either. I get why people like Palantir. And as its performance as a company has been very good. Its performance as a stock has been extremely good, especially over this last day. I mean, a 29% rise in one day is nothing to scoff at. I think it's too expensive though, in my taste. Yeah, SanDisk is after their market close today, guys. So we'll look at SanDisk. Thoughts on IonQ with earnings tonight, Lex? It's early for me, in my opinion. IonQ's it's a little bit early. For quantum in general, and not just that company. You can like IonQ, you can like Rigetti, all of these companies. The commercial cases, like the commercial use case and the economic value that quantum computing will provide in the future, I think is inevitable. I think the use of the technology is still being built out. And what people and companies and institutions and organizations can use quantum computers for are still trying to be figured out at the moment. It's a little early for me, in my view. Any predictions for SanDisk? I think that they're probably going to beat, would be my guess, as well as Celsius. What are three good quantum stocks? The ones that I'm I'd say IBM, Rigetti Computing, and IonQ. If you wanted to get into quantum, I think those are the best positioned. Will AMD recover to 500? I don't think so. AMD is extremely expensive. I don't get AMD. I don't get why people are stoked about AMD. I mean, even, SpaceX is entirely, they committed to building everything with NVIDIA. I think that's a big blow to AMD, why it's down 6% today. And they basically said the NVIDIA architecture is better. Their Rubin Vera, and Blackwell chips are just better. Undervalued still. I'd love to know why, though, Lucas. Like at 161x earnings for a GPU and CPU manufacturer, that's still cheap. relative to a competitor that's more profitable, has more cash flow, is just doing better than them. I'd like to know what the specific bull case for AMD is. What are we saying on ASTS Meta possible partnership, Chris? I don't see it happening. It could. I don't like ASTS and Rocket Lab. The massive execution risks. They need to pull. They basically will have their make or break moment, and if they're successful in essentially getting wireless services into orbit, that'll make it. And if they don't, it'll break. I can understand the bull case behind ASTS. It's a huge execution risk, though. Why is everyone hating on drone sectors? Are people hating on drones? I mean, how's Ondas doing? Yeah, it's basically flat today. It's been a decent month for the company. Is this who we're talking about? Or are we talking about someone else? Like which ones? Do you think Adobe stocks are undervalued or will it drop more? Adobe's in an interesting spot. To be honest, I feel like Adobe's a value trap. I think they're still trying to figure out how to navigate the AI product growth. I mean, it's there. Who knows? I could be really wrong on Adobe. There's definitely, like, from a fundamental perspective, if we just take a look at Adobe and see what its recent financial results have been in the last couple of years, it looks decent. Like, we have growing revenue and profitability. The balance sheet's getting a little bit bloated, and it looks like there were some share buybacks in 2025. On a quarterly perspective, it's basically flat. So with Adobe, I think the thing that we need to pay attention to is what the growth story is going to be. How are they going to grow their revenue, and how are they going to have their AI product differentiate the company? Because there's a lot of competitors out there, or quasi-competitors, that can kind of do what Adobe offers. So I would have to have pretty high conviction of getting into Adobe, but honestly, no. Think about West Wing. I need a ticker for that. What about JBL? It's all right. I asked about Boeing last week, and you gave it the thumbs down. Thoughts now? Henry, it's probably the same, to be honest. I know the MAX 7, the 737 MAX 7 got certification from the FAA. I mean, which is great news. And that's probably why we're seeing a 1.5% uptick. I think there's light at the end of the tunnel for Boeing. Obviously, the 2010s, the second half of the 2010s and early 2020s was a pretty dark time for the company. There's a lot of things that the company still has to improve upon. The Dash 9 program, I think, should be their top priority, but there's still a lot of things that are problematic about Boeing. And it's expensive relative to its earnings at the moment. Its position and price to performance for chips, OpenAI deal, and still bullish on data center growth. Fair enough, Lucas. I think you're better off going with NVIDIA than AMD still. I mean, if that's your thesis in general, and like if you think that that's what you believe is going to end up happening, then I think you're in a better spot with NVIDIA. How do you feel about Zeta's earnings mishap with brokers saying 80% miss even though it was a double beat? I didn't know that happened, Brennan. With Zeta, it's wow, up 12% today. Impressive. With Zeta, I don't follow them that closely. I know that they announced a partnership with Palantir. And I know that they've had a good year. In fact, it looks like they're at a 52-week high. Yeah, they are. So there's probably a lot of reasons to like Zeta. I'm not a huge follower of it, though. Thoughts on SanDisk earnings, Henrik? It'll be interesting to see what happens at 4:30 today Eastern time in the U.S. We'll see. LRCX. Andrew, I like Lam Research. I'm a bigger fan of Applied Materials, though, just because I'm a shareholder in Applied Materials. Lam's a good company, though. The fundamentals are there. I mean, they're pretty similar businesses, Lam and Applied Materials. KLA. Someone's mentioned these guys before. I believe, yeah, manufacturers. Okay. Yeah, they're semiconductors. To be honest, they're priced very similarly to a lot of semiconductor plays at the moment. I just like Applied Materials. I think that they have a healthier balance sheet. And they're not quite as expensive relative to earnings as KLA is. West Wing, WEW. Who are these guys? West Wing Group SC. Okay. This is a e-commerce retailer, home and living. Okay, European, of course. Furniture, textiles. Honestly, so with West Wing, Consti, I haven't heard of these guys before. Let's see what their fundamentals look like in an annual basis. Okay, so they have 449 million in revenue with a 6.5% margin, at least according to here on Barron's in 2025. Balance sheet looks okay. Operating cash flow looks fine. Quarterly perspective, it's okay. So we were higher in Q4 25, lower in Q1 26. Makes sense. Probably seasonal. Not that exciting. This isn't that exciting, to be honest. I'm not like there's more interesting opportunities than these. So no, I would pass on this. Thoughts on SpaceX? Yeah, so we got SpaceX's first Q or first 10Q. SpaceX is still too expensive. They're still massively overvalued. This is a company that's still too expensive. There's still a lot of things to dislike about SpaceX, despite the fact that there was a revenue beat and things look good, but there's still more growing CapEx guidance. SpaceX is still too expensive. SpaceX becomes interesting to me once it dips below $70 a share. And honestly, I could see why I should have shorted SpaceX at 160 a share. Thoughts on Robinhood? Emerald Clips, I like Robinhood. I think Robinhood, I would take Robinhood over SoFi, to be honest. I think Robinhood's a more interesting company. Thoughts on SanDisk? Is now a good time to get in for a short-term swing trade? Logan, I haven't looked at the technicals close enough recently to give you a good answer on that. I don't swing trade to begin with. As far as doing swing trades based on earnings, you can go for it. I'd imagine SanDisk is probably going to beat. I'd say a slight beat. I don't know if the market's going to reward them for that, though, because things have happened where we've had, blowout earnings or very, very good guidance and very good results with Amazon, Microsoft recently, and they were punished for it. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. Should I take profits on Zeta? That's not a bad idea, to be honest. Considering they're at a 52-week high, they're up 11.8% today. I don't think that's a bad idea. Netflix seems like a great buy. Let's see how has Netflix done. I've kind of been out of the game for about a week. I was on some leave visiting family. All right, not bad. For Netflix, their Q2 call and their Q2 guidance was pretty ugly. I was a fan of them at a price before that Q2 earnings call. I'm glad I waited. It's tough. Netflix feels cheap right now. Their metrics are worsening, but their valuation's still attractive, even at 23x. I would probably pass on Netflix and wait for maybe Q3, unless I, really dug into this company, did a deep dive on them, and tried to ascertain what the right move with them would be. My guess is that with Netflix, we'll probably see relatively flat results for the rest of the year, in my view. Do I think SanDisk will smash earnings? No, I don't. SBLK. Star Bulk Carriers. Oh, yeah. These guys. How many ships do they own? They've got a couple of, it's a couple of crude carriers, no? Oh, no, they got 136 dry bulk vessels. Okay. Bryson, why do you like these guys? Like, what's interesting to you about them? Because for Star Bulk carriers, I mean, if you're going to own some dry bulk carriers, you're probably going to have a pretty predictable, boring business that, you know, makes a profit. But, like, what's exciting about them? Revenue growth, they pay out 100% of profit through dividend. So they're paying, so they have a good yield. Yeah, it's not bad, 3.6%. On a $3.2 billion market cap isn't bad either. What do their fundamentals look like? Seems okay. That's just a yearly perspective, though. Not bad. A 21% margin on being a bulk carrier. Interesting. Balance sheet health is slightly declining, and it looks like maybe there were some buybacks. So obviously, what you have to weigh, in my view, what you have to weigh in to deciding whether or not you like these guys is what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el Mandeb too, of course. So I mean, yeah, they move bauxite, fertilizer, steel products. So they're not directly exposed. They are indirectly exposed though. So that's geopolitical risk that you have to price in, I think. Could be interesting. It could be interesting. I'd have to do a deep dive on them. The beta is nice, so they probably have a decently low cost of capital. That helps with growth projections, I think. Look at Grab. Sure. I know Uber is down a bit today. Grab's pretty flat. With Grab, I would be interested in buying Grab if Uber acquired them. That's what interests me about them. Other than that, you're probably going to see similar results. Why am I anti-SanDisk? I'm not, Braden. I'm not. There's plenty of things to like about SanDisk. I would buy, if I'm buying stock in Grab, I buy it for the conviction that I think it's going to get acquired. That's something I don't know enough about. Could be okay. Debating a call on Uber v Tesla. Well, Nick, you're probably going to see a lot more open interest on the options chain for Tesla than you will on Uber. So it means if you need to close your position before you exercise or get assigned, that could help. But as far as picking those two, I'd pick Tesla. I just don't like Tesla, technically or fundamentally. Should I buy Bitcoin instead of a first car? I'm fine without it. No, I would buy your car. That's actually hilarious. Where do you think Amazon's going from here? It's an interesting spot, Eric. I think Amazon has room to grow. I like Amazon. They had a decent results. What's the thing that the thing that you have to look at with Amazon, in my opinion, at the moment at least, is you have to examine the opportunity cost that you're paying by investing into Amazon as opposed to Microsoft. Because Microsoft had stronger growth, stronger earnings, just stronger results for Q2. Amazon wasn't bad though at all, and they're I'd say they're middle of the pack as far as hyperscalers are concerned. Novo Nordisk. So I know Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly have been locking horns pretty hard recently. There's a lot of things to be excited. It's pretty cheap. And I know that Novo Nordisk has a lot of strong fundamentals. I mean, if we just look at what their results have been for the last couple of years, this is quite strong. This is quite strong, especially from a multi-year perspective, especially for a pharmaceutical company. The development cycle for pharmaceutical companies is by far the biggest risk that you have to price in, and that's why they have extremely high margins, which makes sense, a 33.1% net margin, at least in 2025 for Novo Nordisk. On a quarterly basis, things look good too. There's a lot to like about Novo Nordisk. I think that if you want exposure to European pharmaceuticals, this is the one I would choose. Tons of things to like about Novo Nordisk. Bitcoin's not a bad buy right now. Cars only going to depreciate. That's true. Cars are depreciating. They lose value. That's also true. I don't with Bitcoin. I don't really follow Bitcoin. I don't really care. Bitcoin's an interesting macro hedge. I think blockchain is an interesting way to look at things. The technology is certainly interesting. The thing with Bitcoin though is it's been all over the place, and to be honest, I don't know enough about it. What do you think about SanDisk? SanDisk could be good. I think with their earnings coming out today, there's a lot of things to be interested in what's going on with them. I don't think that SanDisk is going to have a huge breakout. I expect a slight beat from revenue and from EPS. As far as and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they get punished for it. Because we've seen that happen with companies in the AI semiconductor, memory chip space, whatever. After good guidance and good earnings, the market decides that they want to sell their shares, which, is fine. Do I hold shares in SanDisk? I don't, but there's things to like about it. The valuation could argue, someone could make a good argument as to why they're too expensive at the moment. Would you sell AMZU 2x leverage after this quick run up? Are you using margin to get a 2x levered position, Eric? Oh, no, my bad. No, this is the levered ETF. And what was your question? Would you sell AMZU 2x leverage after this quick run up? It depends on when you got in and whether or not you like your profits. What habits that can help you keep track of these so many different companies? I'm struggling. Sten, it's a lot of reading. Staying up to date on what's going on. Doing a lot of reading of like the Wall Street Journal, Yahoo Finance, Barron's, Financial Times, Bloomberg. Staying on top of all that stuff requires a lot of reading. What about INOQ in today's earnings? Nicolo, I think INOQ is probably one of the best positions of quantum companies right now, but in my opinion, quantum as a whole is a little bit early. I think it's a little early for quantum. Here's the problem. The income statement for quantum computing companies are ugly. And that makes sense. There's a lot of things that make sense about that, but the problem is that we don't know how long quantum computing becomes commercially viable. And I think it will be eventually. It's just a question of I don't think it's a question of if, it's a question of when. Is that when going to be sooner or later? I'd like to see more substance as far as like just selling quantum computers. I'd love for them to like set up a model to be able to rent their quantum computers. We'll see though. SOUN earnings today. Oh yeah, this is the Sound AI company. I did not like these guys before. The last time somebody brought them up. And I think they've been around since like 2019, I believe. I think it was 2019. Here's what their balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow has looked like. So they have to continually raise cash. They probably burn through quite a bit. Still not profitable. On a quarterly basis, things are okay. Not yeah. I mean, this is a high conviction growth play. I'd have to look at like what their core competency and their core product or service is, and to see what the viability of that product or service looks like moving into the future. earnings could be okay. They could have good news. It's guidance, what I think is going to move the stock price, though. What's your take on SoFi CEO keeps buying, but I don't know if that's good or not. King Ace from YouTube says that. I think King Ace for SoFi, I think Robinhood's more exciting. I know SoFi had good results. But for what SoFi does, it feels a little bit expensive. Yeah, and they still they didn't break out above $20 a share. Over the last wow, they got down to 15. See, I was out of town during this time right here. Dang. Okay, so there was some recovery, but again, even with good results, that gets them up to $18 a share. It's around 37.5 times earnings. Not super stoked on them, to be honest. Can NVIDIA stock grow 2x, 3x by 2030 in price, considering their huge free cash flow and revenue? World, no, I don't. I don't see NVIDIA doubling or tripling in value within the next 4 years. And the reason I say that is because I don't know how much more CapEx spending we can handle or would be required from hyperscalers, from AI companies, from whoever that drives demand for NVIDIA's chips that would justify them being a $10 trillion company. Right now, they're at about 5.3. Are they going to be a $15 trillion company by 2030? No, I don't think so. Is there room for growth for NVIDIA? Yes. Are the fundamentals there for NVIDIA? 100,000%. Yes. They've done an amazing job over the last couple of years. It's been the best investment anyone could ever make, I think, in the last decade. But that doesn't mean they're going to triple in value in 4 years, considering what their historical performance has been recently. And King Ace, no worries. Thanks for asking. How do you know SoFi is expensive? Do you compare with similar companies or with any other metric? I do look at their competitors and look at their PE ratio relative to what their competition is, and look at what their core business is. I think with SoFi, they're a bank with some extra bells and whistles trying to do fun stuff. Does that deserve a premium valuation? Some could easily say that. I think there's more exciting things going on Robinhood, though. 65K on NVIDIA, pretty good day. Yeah, today is a good day for NVIDIA, and rightfully so. Especially after the SpaceX earnings call, where they said that they're exclusively going to use NVIDIA Rubin Vera for Grok's data centers. Thoughts on Reddit? I'm bullish on Reddit. It was disappointing what happened when Reed Hastings said that they're still trying to find a win-win solution for their AI content licensing in their recent earnings call. But again, fundamentally speaking, Reddit knocked it out of the park with revenue. I think that they suffered a lot right here because the market for some reason the market thinks that a pure advertising business is boring now, even though that's growing at a fantastic rate, and they're seeing very strong revenue and earnings growth from that. So to be honest, this was a great buying opportunity. I took advantage of it. I'm bullish. Despite that, I'm still bullish on Reddit. This is a classic buy the dip situation in my view. Bought at 140. I think that's a good move. I did too. And my target price for Reddit's around 230 a share. And you guys can go check out my YouTube channel if you want to get more details on that. What do I think of Palantir? He's woke, so he hates him. Okay. So apparently I'm woke because I think Palantir is an expensive company. That's funny. Okay, so with Palantir as a business, they've had amazing results. It's very impressive what Palantir has pulled off. And I mean, their whole ontology platform is really cool. I think that Gotham and I think that Apollo are really solid systems. Their capability is fantastic. They're also growing in the commercial sector too, so their reliance on government contracts is coming down a bit. But am I going to pay 136 times earnings for them? No. And I said I didn't like Carp. Yeah, I don't like Carp because I don't think a CEO should be saying that short sellers of his company's stock should be sprayed with fentanyl-laced urine from drones. Sorry. I don't think that that's controversial. I mean, so yeah. Thoughts on SanDisk? You think it's going to be up or down after reports? I think it's going to be down, even though I think they're probably going to outperform. I think we're going to see a slight beat for earnings and revenue for SanDisk. What's stopping Amazon from hitting 300 a share? My guess is that it's growth compared to its competition. I still think that Amazon's a great value at this point. As far as hyperscalers are concerned, I think the best performer fundamentally is Microsoft, and then Google. I'd put Amazon in third place. I think Amazon is the best value right now, though. I think it's a really, really solid valuation at the moment. This is a very interesting price for Amazon. There's a lot of things to like about it. As far as the others, a lot of reason to like them as well. Why not hold S&P 500 2x and hold for years for an average 38% return? Jario, that's a good point. There's two reasons. First is that I like looking at companies. I like analyzing stocks, and I like the mental challenge that comes with that. And the second is that the S&P historically has not returned 30% each year. The 9.5 decade average is around 9.5% annually. We're just in an insanely good bull market in recent history. That's why the S&P has done well. So, yeah. Nokia is not that interesting to me, to be honest. Yeah, I'm not kind of a meme. Same with BlackBerry. Thoughts on Meta? Joe, interesting and then Beatrice, we'll get to you about IBM. With Meta, here's my thing about Meta. Is if I were to rank all the hyperscalers, and I'll probably do a video on this, the best, I think, at the top is Microsoft. Second place is Google. Third is Amazon. Fourth is Meta. Meta had good revenue growth, but their CapEx guidance still grew, and there's concern about the long-term profitability and sustainability for this. Microsoft had something to show for all the money it's spending in Q2. Mark Zuckerberg and Meta don't yet. They're still working on it. So now I think there's kind of a clock ticking for Meta. It's like, okay, you're spending billions, hundreds of billions of dollars on building data centers, on building Hyperion, on doing all these things. What do you have to show for it? That's where I think the concern with Meta is. Its valuation is fundamentally speaking, it's cheap. And historically speaking, it's cheap. But I don't think that should be your main way to look at Meta as an investment. I think that Meta needs to, they're going to have their put up or shut up moment from the market. I think that's going to be before the end of 2026 for them. And then in last place, I'd put Oracle. Okay. Thought about what about Kratos Defense? Joshin, Kratos Defense, their profitability sucks. I don't get why they're losing. They're barely making money, and they have a lot of revenue. Not an interesting defense contractor in my view. Now, as far as IBM's concerned, obviously everybody remembers what happened with IBM. a month ago when their management came out ahead of their earnings report and issued bad guidance, and they saw the worst trading day in the history of the company's stock. As far as IBM as an investment at the moment, I'd have to take a closer look at their books, to be honest. It could be an interesting valuation. And IBM is in a great position compared to other companies, especially for quantum capabilities. But with IBM, it requires a pretty close look, in my opinion. SanDisk, I expect we'll see a slight revenue and earnings beat, and probably the stock come down as a result. That would be my guess with SanDisk today. And we're going to find out in about a half hour. Do you like Eli Lilly for the next 6 to 12 months? Yes, I do. YBM hit 300 not anytime soon, Beatrice. Oracle? How is Oracle doing today? So Oracle is my least favorite hyperscaler. So if Microsoft is an S tier, Google's an A tier, Amazon's B, Meta's C, I'd put Oracle at D. Yes, they have good growth. Yes, they have a massive backlog. They have a massive amount of credit risk, though. And they recently got downgraded by Standard & Poor's. And there's a lot of OpenAI risk. And I think the circular financial relationships that OpenAI has is a sign of weakness, to be honest. CoreWeave going to $20 yet? Well, not recently. CoreWeave is one of my biggest conviction plays. I'm massively short on this company. Over the past couple of days, they've done extremely well, probably because of the bounce back that we saw, potential deals that are going on with Iran and all that kind of stuff. And after a big correction in memory and neoclouds, semiconductors, these types of things, we saw bounce back. CoreWeave definitely benefited from that. Still short on them. And my conviction hasn't changed. So, is CoreWeave going to $20 anytime soon? Probably not anytime soon, but I'd imagine they're probably going to correct again. The fundamentals of this company are really bad. Take-Two, I still like Take-Two. Do I like Nike? Yes, I still like Nike. I've gotten a lot of shit from people about Nike, about my thoughts on Nike. I'm still bullish on Nike. I still think that they can pull it off. I could see them hitting $55 a share within the next 12 months. And then on Friday, we get Q2 results for Take-Two Interactive. That's going to be really interesting. I like Take-Two Interactive at this price. There's a lot to like about Take-Two Interactive. My target price for Take-Two could change as a result of what happens on Friday when we get Q2 results. Current target price for Take-Two Interactive is about $285 a share. That could go higher. There's a lot to like about Take-Two. Thoughts on ServiceNow? Yeah, how is ServiceNow doing? Oh, nice. Okay, good. Good. Yeah. There's so one thing I will say, and I'm not going to toot my own horn here or anything. I said, and people can go watch my VODs or whatever, that we're probably looking at around a $90 per share support for ServiceNow when I was probably about a week and a half ago when I was live talking about ServiceNow. My target price for the company was around 90 to 95 a share. If it goes above, I think it's a good hold. And I think if you like your profits at where it's currently at the moment, this isn't bad. It's expensive relative to earnings, especially compared to its other SaaS competitors. That's justified, though, in my opinion, and you can go find out why I think all of that stuff on my YouTube channel. Because I talk about ServiceNow in detail and their business overall. Their management has done a good job of integrating AI agents into the company. ServiceNow has expensive operating costs because they have a large sales force pushing their products. They also have a very sticky ecosystem, which is good. Customers who start with ServiceNow typically stay with them. Do I have money in Take-Two? Yeah, I do. I do own shares of Take-Two. Constellation Energy. As far as Constellation Energy is concerned, I like what they're doing with nuclear. I think that basically controlling dominating the power market for Florida is a good basis for the company. I think the nuclear play is interesting. If I wanted to get into nuclear, it'd probably be Constellation, these guys. It's at a very interesting price. I think there's a lot of things to like about them. What concerns me, though, as far as the growth story for Constellation, are the regulatory barriers. Do I like IGV? To be honest, I haven't taken a close look at this ETF. The thing is with sector ETFs, you definitely can get good exposure without having to pay as close of attention to your investments as you would if you get directly into an individual stock. With that being said, when you buy an ETF, you're buying the good with the bad. So there are probably some companies that are better than others in this ETF. I'd have to take a closer look at what exactly their holdings are. So do I like it? I don't know. That's the honest answer. I could. I just don't know at the moment. Western Digital and SanDisk are the two big ones to watch. Well, I know SanDisk definitely is. How's Western Digital doing today? Oops. WDC. There we go. Western Digital, okay. They closed at $5.19 a share, so they're down 5% today. And they're about to announce their Q4 earnings. Okay. What have their last couple of quarters looked like? Because as somebody who likes to find value as opposed to looking for the most popular growth story, there's definitely a lot to like about what Western Digital does. That's interesting. We had a massive leap in Q1 26. My guess is they probably sold off some assets. Really strong growth, though. Improving balance sheet health. $900 million in financing outflows in Q1 26. Let's see. Let's go look at their latest 10Q and kind of compare how things will look to what we are about to find out. So here's Western Digital's 10Q. Okay. Nice improvement in the asset position. It looks like that was because of the fact that we had an increase in AR and a big increase in retained interest in SanDisk. Yeah. So they own shares in SanDisk. That's what drove it. Increase in AP. That's good for cash flow. Liabilities came down by nearly $1 billion. That's good. And as far as the equity side of things, yeah, book equity or book value of shareholders' equity improved quite a bit. Nice. So that's probably helped by the SanDisk position, and retained earnings went up quite a bit as well. How do they use their cash? You can look at the income statement, but what do they use? Okay, so here's operating. Wow. Big year-over-year improvement in net income. Makes sense. Massive gain in the interest in SanDisk, so that's what helped improved operating cash flow. And then as far as working capital turnover, it looks like there was an improvement in working capital turnover. That's why we had $2.5 billion in operating cash flow, and then $310 million in capex. Yeah, massive improvement in free cash flow. So we probably need to see. Let's see. Hang on one sec. Damn, I lost it. My bad. I'm going to go to their income statement to kind of get an idea of what sort of incomes, reported income would make us happy as investors. Okay, so net income was $3.2 billion in Q1. And for 9 months ended, it was 6.2. Okay, so things are improving on a month-over-month basis. Looking at $3.3 billion in revenue and gross profit of 1.6. Okay, so that's better than a 50% gross margin. That's actually fantastic. Operating expenses look good. And then also they had an impact, so that their equity position in SanDisk has really improved things. I'm not going to call it artificially so, but we'll see. What am I looking at? Yeah, this is Western Digital's Q1 10Q. So I think for Western Digital, if we see, call it anywhere from 3.6 to 4 billion in revenue, and net income probably will not be as high because of the company's interest in SanDisk and the big correction that we saw as a result. Things could be good for SanDisk, or excuse me, Western Digital. I think Western Digital is a better price, at least relative to its earnings, than SanDisk is. So there's a lot of things to like about it. Their earnings were a bust. Did they just report it? Did I just miss that? Oh, gee, I did. I was too distracted. Looking at 10Q, and then the stock falls off a cliff. Oh, no. Yeah, okay, so revenue, and this is why, you guys, this is why when we see revenue and earnings beat for a company like, or any company in the AI supply chain, we see a massive sell-off after hours. Oh, my goodness. Is price now for Western Digital good entry? I'd have to take a closer look at the company, Beatrice, and a closer look at the books. But if you're looking to get in, this will help your case of deciding. Olaf, thanks, man. Thank you. Is my microphone off? Someone said my microphone. Is my microphone sound weird? Can you guys hear it okay? SpaceX, microphone sounds weird. Is it okay? Let me know if it sounds good. It does sound weird. Uh-oh. How about now? Is that better? A lot of background noise. Oh, okay. Hang on one sec. It's like a webcam mic. Sounds fine. All right, I have the correct source. Okay. Sounds fine. All right. It's good. Okay, good. Sorry about that. Want to make sure everything sounds good from a technical perspective. Uber. What do we think of Uber? To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of Uber. It's not that exciting of a story. It feels like a little bit of a value trap. The one thing that is exciting about Uber, though, is the acquisition of Grab. There's been rumors that it's in talks to buy Grab. That's interesting. But that's honestly it. However, I absolutely will listen to a strong bull case for Uber. Humming, but I can hear. Yeah, let me go shut one door really quick, guys. Hang on. Okay, I think that should be better. I think that should be better as far as the sound is concerned. Uber has some headwinds with AI and self-driving IMO. Yeah, I know a lot of people were talking about Uber as soon as Nancy Pelosi got in on that stock, but honestly, it's not like I don't think it's that exciting of a story. So yeah. Thoughts on Nvidia in coming days pullback? No, I like Nvidia. I think Nvidia has stronger prospects, especially considering the fact. I mean, it's up 3.4% today, which is a solid day, and I think that its growth prospects are better considering what Elon Musk said on the SpaceX earnings call. Thoughts on SpaceX at its current price? Still too expensive. This is still way too expensive. I'm interested in SpaceX as soon as it gets below $70 a share. Will it hit that point? It may not. There was some positive news to glean from their latest earnings call, but their CapEx guidance increased for Grok. That's why it's down quite a bit. Plus, there was a large amount of private shares and RSUs available that were essentially unlocked recently. I think it was today, actually, that added to the public float. That doesn't help a stock's price either, especially if a lot of employees or insiders want to get out and liquidate. 900 million, yeah, 900 million shares. Intel's still a gem in my opinion. That $80 mark was a massive value opportunity. Here's my thoughts on Intel. It's too expensive. I get the bull case for Intel. I'm not as high as conviction on Intel's future as others are. They knocked it out of the park with Q2 earnings. I'm not as bearish as I was on Intel. It's got a long road ahead of them with Foundry though. I think that they're behind in a lot of ways, and they have to turn around the largest and most expensive part of their company. And at $100 a share, that's a lot. Plus, they have a high beta, high cost of capital. They have the backing, though. They have the backing by the government and others. I get why there's things to like about Intel. I just think it's a long road ahead. What are the best value stocks right now? The best value stocks right now. I can tell you which ones I like, Jake. I don't know if they're going to be the best value stocks, though. I like Take-Two Interactive, and I like Reddit. Those are two companies I'm big fans of at the moment. And honestly, the Mag 7. I think it's a smart idea to go for something like Google, Microsoft, or Amazon. I would hold out and wait on Meta, and I would avoid Oracle, though. That is a face of processing the deep red of SanDisk. Yeah, how do we... Yeah, they're down another 3%. Well, I think it's 20 more minutes until they announce their earnings, no? Or does somebody have it now? Big fan of T2 Interactive and Google. I agree, Nate. I'm a big fan of those as well, especially at current prices. Take-Two train has departed. I wish I bought it during 24. John, I don't think it's too late for Take-Two. Especially on Friday when we find out how Q2 earnings go for Take-Two. That'll give us a better idea of what pre-order... We may get pre-order numbers for Grand Theft Auto 6, and we'll get an idea of how Zynga and 2K, their Zynga and 2K labels are going. I expect we'll see Take-Two to be profitable for the first time in a long time in the second quarter. Waste Management? I'm bullish on Waste Management. You can go watch my YouTube video on them. Waste Management is a good defensive play. I think there's a decent amount of room to grow for Waste Management, especially what they've done in Europe. And their acquisition of a company called Stericycle. They essentially got into the medical space, and that also got them into Western Europe. CEG, SoFi, or Uber. Kevin, the most interesting out of the three is Constellation, in my opinion. I think SoFi is really overhyped. I don't think it's overhyped. I think it's appropriately hyped. I think there are more things to be excited about. There are more things that are underhyped than SoFi. How much of Take-Two expectation for GTA 6 could already be priced in at the moment? So I don't think that the market has appropriately priced in what future earnings and future sales of GTA 6 are going to be. I think the market at the company's current valuation, I think the market has that wrong. I don't think that they're accounting for how long that IP will be valuable for and how much cash that IP will generate as a result of future revenue for the company. The company still makes hundreds of millions off of IP that's 13 years old. And that's not even counting physical sales or digital sales. Plus, Take-Two Interactive, that's about 1/3 of the pie that is Take-Two Interactive. They have two other big publishing labels that have incredible staying power. Zynga in the mobile market and 2K in their basically dominance of they have licenses from the WWE and NBA, and people, it's like buying a Madden game every year. People rebuy that stuff. So, yeah, that's kind of my take. Thoughts about Nokia? Nokia's not that interesting to me. Thoughts on INOD? They announce earnings tomorrow. Innodata. Q2 earnings, expectation for strong growth of AI services. Are these? I've heard of this company. Yeah, Digital Data Syntax. Okay. Oh, they do AI training. To be honest, I haven't taken a super close look at this company. I've heard of them before. How do their fundamentals look? Okay. That actually looks quite strong. On a quarterly basis, that also looks very strong. So they did 90 million in revenue. So if we push that out 3 more quarters based on their current growth, that's probably what company that does around 450 million in revenue a year. Their margin may expand to around 17.5%. That's pretty good. Their current market cap is 2.2 billion, 2.3 billion, and that are 62.5 PE. I'd have to. So good question. I'd have to take a look at what their quality of their earnings are, as well as what their main revenue streams are like, and which one is the most important to them, which one's the most valuable. It could be good. We'll see. Am I still bullish on Reddit? Yes, absolutely, Isaac. Yes. Thoughts on Newmont? 6.6. I need a ticker. Give me a ticker. RGTI reports this week. I'll pay attention to how Rigetti does. I'd imagine things are going to get worse, financially speaking. It's not going to look as good as it did. Probably get worse. It's guidance in quantum companies is what I'm really interested in knowing. Tesla, do you own? Is it worth a buy? No, I don't own Tesla. Probably never will. I don't own any automotive companies. So no GM, no Ford, no Tesla, no Rivian, no Lucid, none of it. I don't like automotive businesses. Okay, Newmont, NEM. Up 6.7% today. Nice. And taking a look at their profile, basic materials. Oh, okay. Copper, silver, zinc. And they probably own a bunch of mine. Yeah. They're a gold producer. Okay. To be honest, so when it comes to mining companies or commodity producers, when they produce something like copper, silver, or maybe even like specialized rare earths like samarium or palladium or this, or gold, I get into the commodity itself. I'd rather just buy gold or silver futures. It could be quite good, though. To be honest, I don't want to put a business in the way of what I'm actually after, which is the commodity itself, because that's where the value is, not the company. What about Nebius? I think Nebius is it's better. It's much better than some of its other NeoCloud counterparts. The fundamentals still aren't great. As NeoClouds as a whole, I'm not bullish on. There will be winners. There will be losers. Nebius, I think, will be a winner in that game. But NeoClouds, once hyperscalers finish building what they need to build, and once the CapEx stops, and once these data centers come online, the need for all the things that Nebius operates, or CoreWeave, or IREN, or these guys, the demand will go down quite a lot, I think. That's not good for the future prospects of this company. What's nice about Nebius is that it's European, so it has some insulation. What under $100 stock is worth buying right now? I like Elf Cosmetics. I did an analysis on Elf a couple of weeks ago when it was around 75 a share, I think. My target price is around 100. So far, things are looking good. Yeah, it was right around the 13th or 20th July. There's a lot to like about Elf. It's expensive from a price to earnings perspective, but from a price to sales perspective, it's not. They have a very interesting business, and I think when they acquired Rhode Cosmetics, it was a really smart move. And they got really, really good value for their dollar on that deal. Thoughts on Apple? Helen from YouTube says that. Helen, I'm always going to hold my shares in Apple. Love Apple. Probably never going to sell it. There's too much to like about Apple. Is it overvalued in my opinion? No, absolutely not. Thoughts on Netflix? I'm probably going to stay away from Netflix for now. It's on my watch list. I'll pay attention to what happens with Netflix. The Q2 guidance was pretty ugly. Is memory ever going to go back up? Well, Isaac, didn't it? We did see a recovery in memory. Are we talking about like SanDisk at above $2,000 a share? I mean, I don't think so. Not for a while, at least. Digital Turbine up 38%. Wow. Okay. Digital Turbine. What do these guys do? Mobile growth platform for advertisers, publishers, carriers, and device OEMs. On-device solutions and app growth. Okay. So they build ad campaigns on mobile apps for... Got it. For advertisers, all this kind of stuff. Huh. Interesting. Not super familiar with them. How do their fundamentals look? Apps is scummy. Their margins are insane. Wait till Amazon gets in the mobile app space. Maybe, yeah. Okay. From a quarterly perspective, not bad. I don't know. I'd have to kind of see how big their moat is, quality of earnings, see what makes them different, how that protects them. To be honest, it feels like the barriers of entry are pretty low for a competitor. Thoughts on Coca-Cola? How is Coca-Cola doing? Nice, $86 a share. A solid defensive play. Probably one of the better defensive plays out there, and you get a nice 2.4% yield out of them. We'll probably see a little bit of growth in the stock. A really solid defensive play. Really just a publisher. Got it. MSTR Strategy Inc. That MSTR. This is a company that is a house of cards built on quicksand. This is not. basically this was the company, they're an entire financial scheme to essentially allow people to collect a dividend or a coupon payment from investing in Bitcoin. However, when you mention to preferred investors or lenders that you're going to give them some type of rate, all of which is contingent upon what the price of Bitcoin is, and when things inevitably go awry, it doesn't look good. Kaizen, hello. Working ad tech, interested to see your take on TTD has gotten absolutely crushed. What do I think about ELF? Nate, go to my YouTube channel. You'll get a big long 35-minute deep dive into ELF, and you'll get my thoughts on what ELF as a company is and why I'm interested. The Trade Desk shop, I haven't heard of this company before. I'd have to take a closer look at them. I've never heard of these guys, if I'm being honest. They're in the ad tech. So technology company creates, manages, optimizes digital advertising campaigns across ad formats, channels, devices, including CTV, video, display. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can take a look at them. I'd imagine they'd have pretty good margins, but this space is one that I'm not super familiar with. Competitor to Google and amazing in the ad space. Nice. Okay, yeah, I'll take a look at them, see how they do, and see what I think of them. Thoughts on Oracle? Started position around 113. Gabriel, to be honest, I'm not a fan of Oracle. I'm not. I think if you want exposure to hyperscalers, you're better off. I'd rather buy stock in something like Google or Microsoft. Am I worried about a big crash in 2021 or thereabouts? Okay, so here's the thing about the market crash. Are we going to see a market crash soon? I don't know. Is the market expensive, historically speaking? Look, taking things into account from a historical perspective, is today's market have high valuations and could it be considered a bubble? Yeah, absolutely. When is the market going to correct? That's a very, very, very slippery slope as to when to try to get that correct or guess correctly. And by how much will the market correct is an even slipperier slope. Not a fan of some valuations of some companies at the moment. And I do think we'll probably see a market correction at some point in the future. Is it going to be 2029? I don't know. Is it going to be before that? Maybe. Really hard to say. SanDisk going down after earnings because the expectations are too high. I think that could be some investors taking profits. It's interesting to me why the market does this when you have good results. I mean, or expected to have good results. I think in 4 more minutes they're going to report. So we'll see. Looks like people are not bullish on SanDisk, though. Still bearish on CoreWeave? Yeah, Boyd, definitely. Core just pumping because of the hype? Yeah, 100%. Still very bearish on CoreWeave. I know that they had a nice little rally over the last week. Not a fan of CoreWeave. I've pulled out. I've been an active investor for 25 years, just starting to get freaked out. Well, I know guys like Steve Eisman, who was portrayed as Steve Carell in The Big Short. The character Mark Baum was portrayed by Steve Carell, and that was really a representation of Steve Eisman. Steve Eisman said he sold his Google. He hasn't bought anything with it yet. And he isn't actively shorting anything at the moment. So the most famous bear in today's market is Michael Burry. And I know he's taken short positions in a lot of companies, and he's gotten a lot of flack for it. And a lot of people don't like his ideas and say stuff like he's called 50 of the past 2 recessions or whatever. So I think it's important to listen to everybody, and everybody who has a strong track record, whether they are bears or bull. What's a stock you will hold till you pass? Apple. I'm holding Apple till I cross the Rainbow Bridge, 100%. Thoughts on Rolls Royce? Cash dividend of 6 pence, 0.06 Great British Pounds with the next date of August 6, 2026. The thing to like about Rolls Royce, I think the better part of Rolls Royce's business is the turbine and engine business. Obviously, it's a company that's been around for a very long time. I think that with Rolls Royce, you got to compare it to something like a GE Aviation, because that's its main competitor. I mean, much like how there's Airbus and Boeing, most planes are powered with GE or Rolls-Royce engines. So I haven't taken a close look at what Rolls-Royce's fundamentals look like compared to GE. It could be more expensive. To be honest, I think GE's prospects are a little bit better. But again, I'd have to take a closer look at it. There's things to like about Rolls-Royce, I'm sure. So yeah. What do you think of healthcare stocks like Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly? I think those are the two best, especially in the GLP-1 game. I like them both. They're both solid companies. It's just a question of whether you want American or European exposure. And I think with them locking horns in the legal battles that they're currently in at the moment, there could be some things that, there could be a winner from that. I don't think it's going to have a huge material impact on either, whatever the result of the result of those legal challenges are. Do you have some kind of target price or good entry time for Google? Olaf, at the moment, I do not. As far as a Google target price, I don't have it. I like Google's valuation at the moment, though. Thoughts on NVIDIA long term? Depends on how you define long term. And thoughts on Zeta? Zeta's interesting, but it's not for Zeta itself. It's because of the deal they announced with Palantir. As far as a company itself, I feel like it's expensive. Thoughts on ServiceNow? I think ServiceNow, I said it with ServiceNow back then when I was streaming. I'll say it again. I think $90 is a good support range for ServiceNow. I think it's a good hold at the moment. But if you like your profits and you got in at around $90 a share, it's not a terrible time to get out, I don't think. Their valuation is appropriate at the moment. I think if their valuation gets too much higher, like say north of $140 a share, that's when it gets into overvalued territory for me. Honestly, I'd say around 135 would be high for ServiceNow. It's a good hold. I would call it a hold at the moment. You're saying to sell ServiceNow? I'm saying if you like the profits that you currently have in the company, it wouldn't be a bad idea. But if you don't, it's not a bad idea to hold it either. Just came from the SanDisk Q2. Stock is tanking. Oh boy. Does anyone have, actually, you know what? I'm going to go check. I'm just going straight to their investor relations page to see if they released their Q2 memo. Nope, that's July 9th. Does anyone have it? Does anyone have SanDisk earnings? Because I'm looking. Oh, here it is. Okay. Fiscal fourth quarter revenue was $8.9 billion, up 51% sequentially. Awesome. Fiscal year 2026 revenue was $20.25 billion, up 175% year over year, with GAAP net income reported at $11.43 billion. Nice. Very strong. What was the street hoping to see? So this is the SanDisk report right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you guys so that way you can see. Wow. That's insane. Look at that growth. That's really impressive growth. And their margin improved by nearly 10 bips. It went from 70, their gross margin did, 78.5 to 84.5 quarter over quarter. That's really impressive. And yet here's the stock. This is so funny to me. Like they knock it, things did well. And yet we're down 3% after hours, after being down 3.5% on the day. And we can join the call if we want. I don't have the audio hooked up for my computer. So why did it drop? Great question. My guess is we're probably seeing investors take profits. I don't know why. This is really, solid results. So Gap revenue was up more than 4x. More than 4x year over year. And their gross margin tripled. More than tripled. That's crazy. We went from diluted net income per share of a loss at 16 cents per share as of the fourth quarter 2025 to $44 in Q4 2026. That's silly. That's so silly to me. And yet people are selling it off. Like so this is why, this is why the market gets stuff wrong all the time. It'll go back up, and 100% will have a great day tomorrow. Would be my guess. And incredibly impressive results. Institutions are playing games. Sure. Yeah. And that's just kind of the norm, though, because we saw the same thing with Google. We saw the same thing with Microsoft. We saw the same thing with Amazon and Meta's reports, their Q2 reports. Thoughts on mining stocks like Anglo American, Newmont, Rio Tinto? Not a fan of mining companies, to be honest. I'd rather just get into gold or silver futures. So that's why big investors are taking profits, because maybe a hawkish future attitudes. Perhaps, but when you have fundamentals this strong, and you don't have any data backing up as to why it's a good case to sell, I'll absolutely hear a bearish summary or a bearish case for SanDisk. This does not scream bearish to me, though. I think the thing is, though, is the growth probably can't be sustained like this for many years. Regardless, though, growth like this needs to be rewarded. Went up 900% over the past 3 months. Did revenue go up 900%? No, of course it didn't. Because that's not how the market prices stocks nowadays. They don't price stocks based, they don't. There's no directly correlated relationship between the company's revenue and what its growth should be. So as far as whether or not it's a good idea to get into SanDisk, it could be. I know that its PE ratio is low. It's at 46.1 trailing 12-month perspective. Its forward PE is probably a little lower than that. So its value relative to earnings has improved, at least since the middle of June, when it was trading at $22.50 a share. Maybe it's already priced in, like the stock is nowhere near cheap at the end of the day, right? Here's the problem I have with people saying, oh, the market priced it in already. It's already priced in. That's an incredibly lazy take, in my opinion. Because if you ask, okay, how has the market priced it in? What specifically about the stock's price or the company itself indicates that future growth has been priced in? The answer is just, oh, well, it just is. That's a lazy take. I think it's a lazy take. What's your favorite bank stock besides JP Morgan? Because I'm too poor to buy it. Papu, you can buy fractional shares of JP Morgan. But if I had to pick one, I don't know. Like Bank of America. Google had a massive one-off in Q2, which boosts their net income. Even then, do you like it? I think so. Yes, but I like Microsoft more. Tech AI chips that are undervalued right now, SMCI. Boyd, SMCI, I do think there's a good case to be made that SMCI is undervalued. I think ASML, like if you really want it, like the lithography game, I think is a safe. Honestly, this is what ASML's moat is, insanely wide and insanely deep. And you could definitely say this company's undervalued at 30 times earnings, 100%. So yeah. Am I buying SpaceX? No, Sam, I'm not. I'm interested in SpaceX if it goes below $70 a share. I'd imagine that's probably not going to happen anytime. It could happen soon. But as soon as SpaceX gets to that level, it could be interesting, especially with the improved revenue that we saw in their latest earnings call. Feel like I missed the move on Microsoft. I don't. Microsoft is at an interesting valuation in my view. We think of Take-Two. Simon, I'm a big fan of Take-Two. Very bullish on them. How's APP looking? AppLovin Corporation. Ouch. Q2 26 revenue of 1.9 billion, falling well short of expectations. Yeah, probably had some bad guidance with it. Ouch. That's rough. Tomorrow will be interesting for SpaceX. We'll see, though. I mean, we already got their first 10Q out of them. Yeah, as far as SpaceX is concerned, I'm not, again, like I said, I'm not interested in SpaceX unless it goes below 200 or below $70 a share. Hard to find any good deals in this market. I could see why you say that, Julius, 100%. If you're a value investor at your core and a pure value investor, there's definitely a lot of reasons as to why it's hard to find good deals. They're out there, though. They're out there. It just takes more work than it did. Thoughts on Duolingo? I don't know, Will. Duolingo. Oops. How is Duolingo doing? Lower than expected Q3 forecast. We're at 15.5x earnings. Huh. Down quite a bit after hours. Some growth potential. So with Duolingo, I'd have to like, so, well, let's look at its fundamentals, or at least a 30,000 foot view of fundamentals. Massive improvement year over year, quarter over quarter. Looks decent too. For a company that just has, that's educational software, that's a pretty narrow margin. Like only a 15% net margin on that, and you're getting it for 15.5 times earnings with a low beta. It feels like a value trap, to be honest. I'd have to take a closer look at it, though, but it does feel like a value trap. Thoughts on SK Hynix? SK Hynix is the Korean version of Micron. The fundamentals are there for SK Hynix. Lots to like about SK Hynix. Much like how, you have Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, you can have Micron and SK Hynix. If you want non-American exposure to a popular sector in a very strong performing business, that's not a bad one. What does a value trap mean? A value trap, Olaf, is when you have a company that has a relatively low beta, meaning low share price volatility. It's priced below 20 times earnings. So in the case of Duolingo, it is. And it has decent earnings with no or a very low dividend yield, and a margin that isn't quite as, that's not super impressive, especially for the product or service that's sold. What that means is that there's probably not a lot of room for the stock price to go up because of the fact that there's probably not a lot of good growth prospects for the company. I would imagine for Duolingo, I mean, how have they done this year? Yeah, not a great year for them. And it's been okay since the end of Q1 for them. I mean, how has it done in the past 12 months? Even worse. Ouch. If Duolingo had exciting growth prospects and there were things to like about the company, or they were expanding into a new market or developing a new product or service or something like this, we would have probably seen a big recovery with them. It was probably pretty overvalued here as well. But if they're just going to be teaching people how to teaching new languages on their software platform, there's probably not a ton of like I don't see how we could have a major breakout with them. Their switch to AI killed them. Got it. Thoughts on SanDisk? Right here, we got it right here. Really impressive, extremely impressive. The market is being dumb. This is the classic case of this is a classic case of I think the market's just being silly right now. This is stupid. A 3.4% decline after those kinds of earnings. Like, come on. IonQ for what are my thoughts on IonQ? It's early for in my view, Blake. Quantum. It's a little too early for me. I like the idea of Quantum. I think Quantum's going to be a huge hit and a massive success one day. A little early in my view. Incredible what you do. You know exactly what reports to put up. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you. And thanks for the gifts too, by the way, guys. Should I hold SanDisk? Based on the information I saw, yeah. Yeah. How was IonQ earnings today? I don't know. How were they? I haven't seen them yet. Anyone know? Let's go look at their investor relations, see if we can find anything. IonQ announced record second quarter 2026 revenues growing 287% year over year. Nice. GAAP revenues 80 million. 2.8 times year over year increase. Very good. What else? I know it's kind of hard for you guys to see. Most of this is just guidance, it looks like. I'm looking, like, obviously this is worth reading, but I want to know what the... I mean, I'll go look at the 10Q on Edgar later, but raises full year guidance between 280 and 290 million as remaining per RPO, 297% year on year. Nice. That's impressive. Marvel. What do we think about Marvel? Marvel's an expensive one. Still feels expensive, to be honest. It's getting better, but I mean, with Marvel, I'd rather get into something like SMCI, if I'm being honest. Arista Networks is a good play too. And and on the semiconductor side of things, you can always invest into. I think there's some companies with better fundamentals than Marvel. Marvel is in an exciting space, and it's had impressive results. I think that I don't want to say there's better value to be found, in my opinion. Yeah. What's the difference between a safe stock, aka Visa, and a value trap? Olaf, the main thing that you're going to see between something like Visa and a value trap is that Visa does things to reward its shareholders, like pay a dividend. This is not a great yield, to be honest, but they also do buybacks. And they continue to battle for market share amongst their main competitors. So if I wanted to get into a solid defensive company like Visa, I'd honestly look at something like MasterCard just because I mean, the price to earnings is slightly better, but that's about it. Their yields are very similar. I mean, MasterCard's at a 61 basis point yield, which is decent. But there are better defensive plays. You're going to see low betas and you're going to see consistent margins on strong defensive plays with decent dividend yields and buyback activity in the past. A value trap does not see a value trap. They typically tend to protect their cash and don't have very high growth prospects. How does Corning look? I took a dip. Should I still buy? Yeah, how is Corning doing? Oh man, they've had a rough month. That's a rough month. I'd have to take a closer look at Corning's books, to be honest. Especially over the last month, as far as like what they can do in the fiber space and how they contribute to the popular part, the popular AI market that we find ourselves in, and how they can capitalize on data center investment, on all these types of things. I'd have to take a closer look at their books. SpaceX a good buy at the moment? No. Why is SanDisk doing this? Because the market's silly. Because the institutional investors are just silly. Down 5% after hours. Like this is probably just momentum trading going on and people positioning themselves for tomorrow. In my eyes, this is buy the dip. This is good news almost. How do you think the tech market will react after the Texas governor paused new data center projects? I didn't know. That's news to me, Will. I don't know. I didn't hear about this. I mean, is Texas basically the new New York and they're banning data centers or what? I didn't hear about this. Zeta Global. With Zeta, I mean, it's like, yeah, they beat revenue expectations and that sort of thing. It's expensive though, and it's not. I mean, here's Zeta's fundamentals. What makes Zeta exciting is how they're basically partnering with Palantir. Here's their fundamentals over the last 3 years. Extremely strong revenue growth, but they for some reason their expenses still remain high enough to where their marginal costs are still their marginal costs are shrinking relative to their revenue, but not as fast as, or it's their marginal costs are more than marginal revenue for now. And on a quarterly basis, things look like it's just kind of meh. So I think, partnering with Palantir and all that kind of stuff is exciting moves, but I'm not like, it's just not that. To be honest, I'd rather, I know it's not the exact same industry or the exact same thing. I'd rather get into something like ServiceNow or something related. It feels expensive. A $6.8 billion valuation is a lot, I think. IONQ, they had good results. It feels early for Quantum for me. You think SanDisk earnings will push NVIDIA? Do I think, you mean up? Will they push NVIDIA earnings up, you mean? It's possible. There's more things, though, I think that will impact NVIDIA than what SanDisk's earnings are. Micron just needs time. Maybe. QuantumScape, do we have a ticker for them? Only allowed to hold one. SanDisk, SK Hynix, or Micron. What should you choose? Oh, That's a tough one. I don't know, Will. I think Micron. But again, I'd really have to dig deep into the numbers for all of them. I'd say Micron. They're all decent. They're all good though. Like fundamentally speaking, they're all insanely good businesses. That's a tough one. My gut's leaning towards Micron, but I'd have to go back and do a check and test it. TQQ for the long term, yeah, not a bad move, man. Will SanDisk help AMD go up? Brian, I don't think so. I mean, AMD is not. I'm not impressed with AMD. This is not that impressive. Like it's very expensive. I said it before, I'll say it again. There's no reason to invest in AMD when you can invest in Nvidia, especially after what Elon Musk said on the SpaceX earnings call. They said the Nvidia architecture is the best. It's better than the competition. Vera Rubin is the best out there. They're going to rely on Blackwell as well. There's no point in buying shares in AMD when you can just get a better company in Nvidia. Where do you think SanDisk opens tomorrow at? I think we're going to see a good day out of SanDisk tomorrow, up from anywhere from say 3 to 8%. But they had very strong results, especially from a year-over-year perspective. There's a lot of things to like about it. QuantumScape's ticker is QS. Nvidia should be at 500 and is overrated. Lisa Su ain't better than Jensen. What I will say is Lisa Su has put up a really good fight, and she's making the right moves, but it's just, there's just massive disadvantages at play for Nvidia. And I don't think that, or for AMD, and I just don't think that AMD is as good of a company. QuantumScape, together with subsidiaries, develop solid-state lithium metal battery technology and other applications. Okay. Consumer cyclical. 50% decline in its value. They have an $859 million liquidity position in new partnerships. Okay. How do fundamentals look? Ugh. Yeah, so they're having to raise it. Yeah, they have to dilute their shareholders or raise debt. It's an interest. This would have to be a very high conviction play. It's basically a bet on their technology and how their technology, scales or looks compared to the competition. I don't know. QS has been trying to get a functional battery for years. Have they been unsuccessful since, Gabe? I mean, have they been trying to do this for a long time, but what's the deal? Like, why? I mean, if they've been around since 2010 and 16 years into the game, they still don't have a good product. To be honest, nah. A signed peace deal would put a cherry on top of these earnings. The thing is with respect to the peace deal, I almost, or like with what's going on in the Middle East, I almost have to ignore that, because the very next day we could see things blow up, just go insane again and blow up again. Not one analyst is calling QuantumScape a buy. I can see why. What's the site? This is Yahoo Finance. Did I increase my position in Reddit? I did a little bit. Yeah, Olaf, I did. I think what happened with Reddit, right here, a couple days ago, I'm still confident on the AI licensing thing. That's what happened with this. That's why we came down so much, because Reed Hastings said, or their CEO said, "Hey, we're still looking for a win-win with Google on this." I still think it could happen, and even then, their advertising has improved markedly. I still like Reddit. Elf. I'm a fan of Elf. Elf Cosmetics is another one I'm bullish on. I think that my price target for Elf is at around $100 a share. This is a strong company. I think that they've been absolutely stealing market share from companies like Olay and Estee Lauder. And they're basically the face, they're the face of Gen Z. Their marketing is extremely effective. They put a lot more money into marketing than their competition, and they bought a bunch of very valuable brands over the last couple of years. I think that's going to do well for them. And then they have their Q1 earnings call. So maybe things will change. What do you think about Joby and Archer? Archer Aviation, Alex? I think Archer Aviation's fun. I don't take it seriously as an investment. Hoping that Elf will drop so I can enter. Well, this doesn't look like a bad entry point. What do I think Google will be at the end of the year? How have they looked so far this year? Here's their performance over the last year. I'd have to look at the technicals. Fundamentally speaking, Google is extremely strong. I mean, it's like as far as ranking hyperscalers, I put Microsoft in S tier, and then I put Google in A tier. Very strong. I could see him hitting $400 a share by the end of the year. It's possible. Again, that's just a guess off the top of my head, though. I'd have to look closely at it. When's Elf's earnings report coming out? Their earnings call is live right now. Here's an interesting take. I work at Salesforce, and I think it will be 300 plus within 2 years. Also could be bought out by Anthropic. Interesting. So, Thomas, why do you think Anthropic is going to buy Salesforce? That's an interesting take. I haven't heard that before, because I don't see that happening at all. But I'd love to know what you think and why you think that is. DraftKings, and I'll get to DraftKings. Yeah, we'll check out DraftKings while I wait for Thomas's reply, because I want to hear this. DraftKings, did they have a bad quarter or something? Oh no, they're on Friday. Jeez, DraftKings is priced at 241x earnings. My God. Okay, hang on. Thomas says all the data, the automation will be huge since they're making a big B2B push. Thomas, do you think ServiceNow is doing a better job than Salesforce though? Because if you look if you compare Salesforce and ServiceNow to like arch rivals in the SaaS space, I gotta go look at other sources for DraftKings data. But if you compare ServiceNow and Salesforce, ServiceNow is much more expensive. And I know that ServiceNow has a lot going for it that Salesforce may not necessarily have. Anthropic puts Slack equals gold. Interesting. That's an interesting take. Stock-wise, I like ServiceNow. Okay. Slack is the key. Huh. Okay. So if Dario thinks there's enough value in Slack, you think he'll go for it? Interesting. It's out of left field. It's a take out of left field. It's an interesting one, though. Now, as far as DraftKings, whoever is asking about DraftKings, I'm going to avoid it. Way too expensive. For someone I know that uses both Salesforce and ServiceNow for work, hates ServiceNow. It's so funny because I hear just as many comments that are just as loud about how they hate Salesforce. so, uh, in Swedish pharmacies, we use ServiceNow. There you go. Okay. I'm obviously biased though with the government contracts with Salesforce are huge. Yeah, that does help. Um, it feels like to me that the market thinks Salesforce is more of a dinosaur than ServiceNow. Because they're at around 22x earnings, whereas ServiceNow is around 70. And I know that ServiceNow has been much more active about implementing AI agents into their ecosystem, which has made their ecosystem stickier. The switching costs for people for ServiceNow customers is very high. That's part of the reason why they're so that it's such a strong business. It's priced pretty high though. Like relative to earnings, it's priced pretty high. It's we're seeing a bit of a correction after hours, but I'd call ServiceNow a hold at the moment. Salesforce was a dinosaur day one. Yeah. Why the crash in the last hour? Toby, I think it's institutional investors playing games and positioning themselves for tomorrow. I think the big one is with SanDisk earnings. Down another 3.4% after hours, which is just silly because SanDisk did insanely good. ASTS, I'm not a huge fan of ASTS. I think ASTS is a massive execution risk. There's a lot on the line for them to be able to succeed. What happened with Elf? I don't know with Elf. We have to find out what's going on in their earnings call. I mean, let me go to their investor relations. Elf has had a pretty good month. Let's see. Oh, they just have a webcast. Second quarter. Yeah, so typically here's Elf's investor relations page. I'd like to see the PDF just because I don't want to have to like sit and wait and listen to a CEO say, "Thanks for the handoff, Jen," and blah 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 blah. Like earnings calls are fine, but they can get kind of to be honest, I like to read the transcript better. There's no PDF file attached to what their webcast is. So to be honest, I don't know. Thomas, I appreciate your take too. That's an interesting one. In the long run, for now, I think you're wrong, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. Maybe Anthropic will buy Salesforce. That would be quite the move. I'd love to know how they would finance that. To sum it all up, Salesforce is evaluated as CRM in the market, but it's much more under the hood. Maybe, yeah. What are your thoughts on Rockwell Automation? Raise earnings report, grading is down. Roan, I haven't taken a look at Rockwell in years. I can't give you an honest take. It's been a long time. SoundHound, let's see. How did they do? 20% revenue beat. Losses improved significantly. And it's up 13.5% after hours. Sounds about right. Sounds about right. So profitability got worse, but revenue is up. And we're up 13%. Thoughts on Parsons? Well, I'd have to take a look. Parsons, PSN. Let's see. Parsons Corporation. Are you going to buy into the Anthropic IPO? I almost certainly will, Ben, because I know there's going to be a lot of hype around it, and I know that they're almost certainly going to beat OpenAI to their IPO. They're being very quiet about it right now. Their investment bankers are probably doing their roadshow right now, finding investors. Federal Solutions, technical concern, U.S. federal government, critical infrastructure. Cyber, air, missile, defensive. Okay, nice. Oh, right. Yeah. I remember these guys now. Now, I'd have to let me refresh my memory on what their fundamentals are. Yeah, this is what I remember. If you're a good defense contractor, you should be making at least a 10% margin, regardless of how expensive or costly the product or service is. Because with the U.S. defense industry, it's not a monopoly. It's the exact opposite. It's a monopsony. That means there's only one buyer of all these products and services. So contractors have more pricing power than the government does in these cases. And because of that, they can usually, especially in cost plus contracts, like cost plus fixed fee or cost plus award fee or incentive fee or CPIF, cost plus incentive fee contracts, you can usually bake in a lot of protection from the government, especially when it comes to development cycles. This isn't that great of a margin. I'd rather get into RTX, Lockheed, or Northrop. Do we get 2 YouTube videos this week? Maybe Olaf. Maybe we'll get one. I'll get one out tomorrow. It's not going to be a deep dive. I haven't had the time this week. I just got back from traveling last night. For the last week. Next week we'll definitely have a deep dive, and I'll get a video out this week on YouTube as well. BAX. Baxter International. Baxter International, I believe this, healthcare. And they've got, okay, so IV solutions, infusion devices, surgical stuff. Got it. Okay, and they're all over the place. They've been in the game for a while. 37,000 employees. Why are they losing money though? Taking a quick 30,000 foot view of what their finances look like. It's a $14.6 billion market cap. Losing $1.93 per share. Year over year, that's not great, and their balance sheet health is getting worse. What's going on? Okay. Well, so far I don't like it. Yeah. I'd have to go look at what their earnings report is like. Prendra, I don't know what's the take here. Like, why are we curious about these guys? What do you think about SanDisk's earnings? I think SanDisk. They knocked it out of the park. An extremely impressive results. The after hours reaction is funny. I think it's a good buying opportunity. SanDisk will dip tomorrow. We'll see. I don't imagine they would, but we'll see. How do you request shares of an IPO company? We find out when they go public, Ben, and then you wait in line. You usually you can put your order in with your broker like a week or a month up to before the scheduled IPO. If they give you the opportunity to do that, then you can. I did it with SpaceX when SpaceX had its IPO in June. I put in my order the day it went public, which was kind of silly because I could have gotten it at a better price, but that's kind of how you do it. Sector rotation for Baxter International. I guess. I don't know. That's strange. I don't know enough about the company. It's an interesting though to see why things are going so poorly for them. What do you think about Nebius? Drone, I think Nebius is the best positioned NeoCloud. I'm not bullish long term on NeoClouds though, so I'd avoid it. It's a pretty volatile stock too, and it's a fun ride for a lot of people who want exposure into NeoClouds. I think it's very expensive. This is a very expensive company. It's got better financial health than its competition though. ServiceNow, good investment for the long term. Stian, I think that ServiceNow is a good hold at this price. About 10 days ago when I was streaming, I said we'll probably see support for ServiceNow at around $90 a share. The most recent local bottom out was about $92.50. I would wait to see if it's going to correct again. Hey, Joseph, what's going on? Do I like Google at this price? Eric, yeah, I do, actually. Yeah. I really do. What'd you say about SanDisk? SanDisk, I think that this is a good buy the dip opportunity with SanDisk, to be honest. They did insanely good. It was very impressive what their results were. We were just looking at it earlier on stream. I mean, look at this. Did 5.9 billion in Q3 26, Q4 26, almost 9 billion in revenue. We also saw nearly a 10% increase in gross margin too. That's very impressive. Yet somehow the market thinks it's worth 3% less. Beats me. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it a stream. I really appreciate everyone joining today. Had a ton of fun talking with y'all, like always. Especially for you new folks, this is your first time hanging out today. I go live every day during the week. I will be live tomorrow, so if you were a little bit late today, no worries. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see how the market reacts to the SanDisk earnings. We'll see how IonQ does tomorrow. We'll also see how Elf Cosmetics does. And obviously, any new geopolitical news that could impact all this, we may find out tomorrow morning before the market opens. So I really appreciate everyone's contributions. Love talking with you guys about this stuff. Love sharing investment ideas. And if you want to continue the conversation, make sure you hit the follow button so that way you know when I'm live. And if you guys were unsatisfied with any of my answers, or basically said, tell me more, that wasn't a good enough answer, tell me more, go to my YouTube channel. On my YouTube channel, that's where I do the in-depth, deep dive stuff. That's where I go into the weeds, into the companies, into the financials, the management, the business model, all of that stuff. And that's where I come up with my target price for some of them. So far, I've done about 8 of them, I think. Done stuff like ServiceNow, Reddit, Take-Two Interactive, Waste Management. I've done CoreWeave, other companies like this. So, yeah. Regardless, we'll be back tomorrow. And thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll talk soon. In the meantime, everyone have a good one. Take care.